Welcome back, and thank you for joining me on Mr. Jim's Adventures. Last time, Sebastian met privately with Major General Sardinad, who transformed what seemed like a simple punishment into an unexpected opportunity. Sebastian learned of a secret mission that may place him in the middle of a dangerous conspiracy, while shocking political news elevates one of his greatest enemies to an even more powerful position. At the same time, Kira and Sebastian struggle with the uncertain future of their relationship. Then, in a hidden maintenance passage, a family argument ends in disaster. The Pentagent suddenly lost power, plunging the fleet into crisis. Today, in Chapter 14, Sebastian begins his punishment alongside Lieutenant Law, only to discover that routine duty can become deadly in an instant. As the fleet fights to understand the blackout, one dangerous prisoner sees an opportunity to escape, and the race to save the fleet begins. Chapter 14, Law. You did it to yourself, kid. Law loosens his tie, takes off his jacket, and settles into his seat at the only table in the tiny compartment. Well, if somebody had told me everything was being recorded and reviewed, I would have known to keep my mouth shut. Well, if you didn't know, now you do. IS records everything we do, and most things the civilian population does. It's how we keep ahead of the game. So what's the game plan? Sebastian joins Law, taking the only other seat at the table. Well, for the next 4 days, you join me in here for 4 hours every night, learning what we do on normal duty shifts. Meanwhile, you keep your grades up in class. I believe you are currently studying the layout of the fleet, major ship names, and the readiness points IS and the Marines use to reach any vessel in need of assistance under Gunnery Sergeant Diamond. And Danielson is wrapping up WWW2. You'll have some time each shift to study. Okay, what do we do on a normal duty shift, boss? It's sir, lieutenant, law, or when we're alone, Reese. Only civilians have bosses. Keep that in mind, will you? Yes, sir. His smirk lets Law know his response was meant to be humorous, which is a good sign. A rebellious and injured attitude would make things difficult for both of them. Well, to answer your question, we first double check everything the previous duty team did and thoroughly read their log. He tosses an old journal to Sebo. The new entry is short with nothing interesting on it, but go back a month and start reading. It's a good way to get familiar with a ship when you first come aboard. The Pentagent was built on the fly, literally. As the fleet moved to get away from Earth, this ship and the Perseus were built. Pentagent's main duty is to protect the Perseus. After you read through the logs a bit, we will take a tour to check in a few key points so you can get a feel for the vessel itself. Sable already knew a few things about the Pentagent. It is one of the largest military vessels. It stays within spitting distance of Perseus and houses the high security prison where IS stuck everyone who they considered to be too dangerous to risk anywhere else. Its importance is not reflected in the log. Other than a couple of prisoner transfers, the log only mentions the prisoners in a comment about some of the dietary requirements of one of the prisoners who has developed an old-fashioned disease, diabetes. Most of the log covers daily repairs, the readiness of the crew, and upkeep on IS equipment. Each entry is signed by the officer who made it. Nearly a third of them have Law's name attached, so the claim that this is his normal duty station is substantiated. His entries were longer, more detailed, and drier than any of the others, missing comments indicating boredom and the lack of anything interesting enough to require the presence of an IS officer. After reading through it, Sabo yawns. Interesting read. Could keep me up all night. Yeah. Well, while you were reading my masterpiece, I checked the remote sensors. The out hatch at L9 indicates a very low pressure. We will double check it manually while we make our rounds. Law straightens his tie again. Let's go. The ship was much like any other. Power is gathered from the Perseus. A few things used the electricity directly, but most of the power is used to create steam to run all the important equipment. Hatches were large gears opened by turning a wheel or pulled by a steam-powered chain. The ship is close enough to the shield that its greenish light streams through the portholes that line the outer walls. The low pressure indicator is due to a faulty glyph. Sebastian starts to repair it. Hold on there. Let the maintenance people do that. That's why we keep them on board. If we fixed everything that we found, we would be exhausted, or at least too low on insight to handle any problems that might arise. It's not a problem. I never feel drained after I use my insight. I could keep this up all day and still have power to spare. Law raises a skeptical eyebrow. Well, it doesn't matter. We don't want to put the maintenance people out of a job. Sebastian starts to explain this was something he could never understand about the people around him. Using insight is like using regular vision, so why would it tire anyone out? But never got to voice this, for at that moment the lights flicker. On a ship, flickering lights mean power-up problems. If the power goes, heat and air circulation end, and if not quickly repaired, loss of life follows. Law mumbles a hermetic ritual to summon a translucent schematic of the ship's control panel. Red lights are blinking all over the place. The backup generators have come online. Let's get to the power collectors. There seems to be a problem there. Sebastian dashes after Law. From their tour, Sebastian learned that the collectors were stationed on the starboard side of the ship, about a quarter of the way around from the bridge. The corridors are suffused in the gentle golden light of the overheads. The green glow of the shield is missing. At the collection chamber, they inform the problem is outside the vessel. Everything here is working well. There just isn't any power being beamed in. Ensign Snow, get to the security office and relay any emergencies to me. I'm headed to the bridge to see if I can figure out what is happening. Xander McPheeson. Come on, Carl. You're stalling. Either trump my queen or toss one of those diamonds on the pile. We both know you've got too many of them. Roger knows he has his partner in a jam. If he trumps now, the spades will be broken, and Roger can start walking them down, claiming most of the rest of the books. If he doesn't throw out a spade now, Carl has no choice of making it his bid. Give me time, Raj. Give me time. It's not like we are in any hurry. We still have hours on this shift. He again counts the few small spades he has and calculates his odds. The sudden pitch darkness lasts for less than a second as the Pentagent's own generators click in. Like most of the military vessels, the ship was designed to be able to operate without the support of a fleet. Its own power supply was more than enough to maintain military readiness. Even in that brief span, Carl is able to leap to his feet with his weapon half drawn. Laughing around the words, put that thing away, Carl. Roger hadn't even budged. There's no need to get violent over a friendly card game. It's not the game. What if the fail-safes on the cells went off? Carl puts the weapon back in its holster and walks over to the big console. Carl puts the weapon back in its holster and walks over to the brig console. See, the indicator for cell 3 is blinking. That don't mean nothing, Roger responds. That whole board is buggy. Give it a couple of taps. Carl does as instructed, and the light returns to a steady green. See, everything's all right. Now get back over here and finish this hand. Can we find something else to do? Spades isn't any fun with just two people. You just don't like losing. As the two continue to argue, unusual activity occurs in the third cell down the right-hand side of the corridor. This is an unfortunate side effect of the brief power outage that was not noticed due to the failing hardware throughout the fleet. In the bowels of the ship, a series of fail-safe mechanisms opened. The devices were part of the brig and were designed to make the transportation of prisoners to new quarters easier. In case of a power failure, the doors would open so the MPs would not have to deal with magnetically locked doors. Xander McPherson happened to be standing near the door with a piece of crumbling wall in his hand. It is jagged enough to be used as a weapon. When the lights flicker off and back on, he reacts even faster than the generator. Xander jams the ceramic fragment in the lock. It's a reflective action with no thought behind it. He doesn't even question his own actions. Long ago, he learned to rely on his instincts. As a kid in the Arboretum, he relied on his wits to get the easiest jobs. His reflexes in the shovel kept him unharmed when one of the older kids came to teach him a lesson about pulling his weight. That's one body that will never be found. He enlisted to wear a uniform, tote weapons, and have all the girls swoon over him. He quickly learned that there was a whole lot more work involved than it seemed from the outside, and the compensations were minimal. So he came up with his own compensation plan. create a few accidents, and convince the shopkeepers there wasn't enough Marines around to secure every place of business. Then suggested that the wealthiest business owners who could pay a bit extra in taxes would get the best security, which worked out well until that ship's captain tried to muscle in on the scheme. That body was found. The discovery of the captain's body initiated an internal security investigation. With dark gray uniforms swarming the vessel, the citizens felt safe enough to come forward, leading to Xander's arrest and conviction. Xander tries the door, and it opens. Now it is time to get off this tub, get some revenge, and disappear into the masses of the open boats. On those giant restructured fuel ships that are so overcrowded with human cargo, there are places even the Marines won't go. While he is still enlisted, enslaved is more like it. Those internal security guys whispered about one big enough for a man to get himself lost on. What was it called? Xander thinks for a minute as he inches his way quietly down the passage. Then it comes to him. Yeah, that's it. The Jefferson Davis. Down the short passage from his cell, two guards sit, still discussing the virtues of playing two-handed spades. Knowing the prisoners couldn't escape, their attention was on the cards in their hands instead of the cell doors. They are so sure of their safety, when they do hear something, they both turn towards the exit, expecting somebody to enter the brig from the outside. Xander grabs Carl and snaps his neck before either man is aware of their danger. Drawing the dead man's blaster, he shoots Roger before the stunned man can get his weapons out of its holster. Taking both the men's weapons, he leaves the brig. Xander is familiar with the layout of the ship and takes the most direct path to the bridge. He must gain control of the vessel before anyone can respond to the alarms he knows the firing of the weapons would have triggered. From the bridge, he'll have access to open docking bays and fire up a shuttle. Sebastian works furiously to change the codes on the local communicator. Somewhere on the Perseus, something is wrong. He has to get in contact with anyone over there to find out what happened. As he works through the heretic formulas, a klaxon blares. This is the warning every vessel has and is identical in sound on all of them. Somewhere a blaster has been fired. The security board lights up, indicating the location of the shot and the closest security personnel. A quick look at the board shows the blast came from the brig. Another klaxon identifies a shot further down the corridor. From his training, Sebastian knows he should be headed towards the shots to apprehend the shooter. But there are all kinds of exceptions to these that he has yet to figure out. Besides, it is clear the shooter is headed for the bridge. With two teams between the shooter and the bridge, there should be no trouble. But Sebastian figures one more officer can't hurt, especially since the personal indicators do not show the location of Law, who is headed towards the bridge. Law meets Xander outside the bridge door. Xander's first shot goes wide, and Law takes cover. Get out of my way. Put your weapons down and surrender. The bridge is sealed tight. Law fires his own laser rifle. Xander takes cover and another wild shot. We were both trained to bypass that lock. Did you forget your basic training? He pulls the trigger, but nothing happens. A device capable of creating a blast of energy strong enough to kill a man, yet light enough to be lugged around, is naturally limited in uses, which is why soldiers are trained in the use of bladed weapons. But Xander isn't relying on blades. He pulls the second weapon he took off the dead guards and fires a shot that goes wide. As he ducks from the blast, Law sends his way. Law doesn't answer. Instead, from his location, Xander begins to hear a strong buzzing sound. He can't figure out what the sound is, but knows if he takes a peek, the corporal will fire another round. But the more shots the officer takes, the sooner his own weapon will go dead. So let's draw some fire. Xander pokes his head out and immediately ducks the buzzing weapon Law throws his way, barely missing Xander's scalp. Throwing your piece was a boneheaded move. Xander straightens up and takes careful aim. Before he can pull the trigger, Law's weapon, which had been set to overload, explodes. Discharged in this manner, the weapon's power is mainly lost and merely sends a light electrical shock. However, it also generates a small EMP burst, disabling Xander's own weapon. With his sword drawn, Law rushes forward. Instinctively, Xander reaches for a bladed weapon that isn't there. As Law's blade pierces his chest, he realizes it was himself who had forgotten basic training. Law swings his blade towards the advancing shadow, then lowers it as he recognizes the source. I ordered you to the security office, he accuses Sebastian. Well, that was before the shots were fired. I decided protecting the bridge was more important than watching a security board. Besides, the electrical problem isn't here. Yeah, I know. Come on. How familiar are you with the Perseus? Law disables the extra security he had placed on the door in case he was not victorious against Xander, and strolls onto the bridge as he wipes his blade clean. Only the captain and one engineer remain. Everyone else had been evacuated. These two stayed behind to keep the vessel flying. Captain, sir, the prisoner situation is resolved. Thank you. How can I thank... Sir, though your ship is now safe, the fleet is still in trouble. Of course, but what can we do from here? Through the massive reinforced glass ports, they can see the darkened ship that used to power the fleet. The flickering along the collector nets indicate it too will fail soon. Nothing. We need to get to that ship to identify the problem. The transports have always run off of beam power. The generators had not been running long enough to charge their batteries. Law examines a diagram of the ship on a control panel. I think I know how to get there. Do your cargo bays have suits? Yes. Good. He turns towards the passage. Oh, I'm going to have to commandeer that engineer. Come along, ma'am. That is the end of chapter 14. Next time on The Problem with Aether, the escaped prisoner has been stopped, but the battle aboard the Pentagent is only a distraction. Somewhere aboard the Perseus, the ship that powers the entire fleet, something has gone terribly wrong. While Lieutenant Law races towards the darkened vessel, Sebastian has no idea that someone else has already witnessed the beginning of the disaster. A single impulsive act, a frightened child, and a moment of anger will change the lives of everyone in the fleet. Join us next time for Chapter 15 of The Problem with Aether.